Okay, guys, so we're going to do 43 today, and 43 has a bunch of holes. Now, I know some of you might think you can just sketch a circle and then extrude it to make the hole. That is not the proper way to make a hole in Inventor. So I'm going to show you the hole command. So if you try and do this by extruding the circle, yes, it will work, but when you go to put the center lines on the IDW, it's not going to be pretty for you. Okay, so stick with me on this one. So the first thing we're going to do is go File, New. We're going to pick Standard IPT, Create. And we're going to come over here and go Home. And looking at this drawing, it's going to be best to draw in the front view. It's just a rectangle with a bunch of holes in it to make it look like Swiss cheese. Click on the chevron. We're going to draw on the front plane, XY, tell it Start 2D Sketch. To work smarter, not harder, I'm going to use the rectangle command. I'm going to click, I'm going to move my mouse, and I'm going to click again. And notice it already puts the parallel constraints on there and the perpendicular constraints, so you don't have to practice dragging the line really nice and even. We're going to go dimension. The width of this thing is 5. So I'm going to type in 5. It's going to get way too big for my screen, so I'm going to use Zoom All. And the height is 3. Zoom All. We're going to finish the sketch and extrude. And the thickness is 0.75. Bring it back on the screen with Zoom All. Now, we are actually not going to put a sketch on it. We're going to use the hole command to do the holes. So let's start with the biggest hole, the one that has a diameter of 1.5. That's this guy right here. Okay. Now you guys know from when we did holes on drawings by hand, you had to know both the diameter and the location dimensions. So what I can tell from this drawing is from the bottom of this thing, piece of Swiss cheese, we'll just call it that, it's 1.5 to the center, and from the left-hand side to the center is also 1.5. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Hole, and it's going to make me select the surface that I want. When you go in, so I'm going to click here, and notice it's nowhere where I want it, and it's not the right size, but that's okay. In your whole dialog box, the word under placement should say linear. If it says anything else, change it to linear, okay? Right here is where you put in the diameter. So the diameter of this thing is 1.5. And notice it changes it in the model view so I can see that it's 1.5. Now see the red arrows? Whenever Inventor wants you to give it information, it's going to highlight something red. So I'm going to click the first arrow, and I'm going to click this line. And notice it puts a dimension there. Now I'm going to change that to 1.5. And it's going to kick that guy over just a little bit, because on my drawing, we said from the edge to the center going this way is 1.5, and just it happens to be the same dimension going up. So to get the one going up, I'm going to click the other little red arrow, and I'm going to click the bottom line, and I'm going to change that to 1.5. And notice it moves the circle for me. So I'm going to tell it Apply. And now you can look at your Swiss cheese from the front, and you see the big hole. You can do it if it's flat, it doesn't matter, whatever you're comfortable with. I like to do the holes in isometric so that I can see exactly where I'm putting them. But again, this is one of those things, your mileage may vary. Do what you're comfortable with. If you'd rather just look at it flat, look at it flat. All right, so we're going to do another hole. So I'm going to click somewhere over here, and notice it's going to default to the last size I used. But on these little holes, both holes, because 2x means there's 2 and they're both the same, have a diameter of 0.75. So I'm going to change that first, 0.75. Notice it shrinks the preview. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at This top hole from the edge, the right-hand side, over to the center is 1. So that's, and from the top line to the center is 1. So we're going to go down 1 and over 1 on this guy. So I'm going to click reference 1, and I'm going to click this line, and I'm going to change that to 1. To answer the question that you're dying to ask me, does it matter which one is reference 1 and reference 2? No. If you click the top line and put in 1, it's still going to work. Okay. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to hit apply, and now I have another hole in my fabulous Swiss cheese. All right, and let's do the last hole. I'm going to click on the surface. Now I don't have to change the diameter because remember on the drawing, it said both of these holes have the same diameter. This bottom hole though, from the right-hand side, he's 1.5, and then he's 1 up. So let's go put those dimensions in. So I'm going to click the red arrow on reference 1, and it's 1 here. And it's 1.5 from the side. And I'm going to tell it apply. And then I can close the whole dialog box. And now I can see I have my Swiss cheese. Oop, well, let me have both. There we go. So you can see that it looks exactly like the picture does. Now, remember, we're going to come up to default. We're going to give it a color. Light red sounds pretty, I guess. There you go. I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm going to save it as Inventor 43. Okay. And now I'm going to do my IDW. Now you may notice a little bit of lag on your computers when you're drilling holes. A lot of that has to do, particularly when you open the holes command for the first time, a lot of that has to do with the, it has to load the whole library, the whole HOLE library, because you can actually, it'll actually do threads, it'll do counterbores, countersinks, and all of that is like a huge database. So if the first time you open hole, it's slow, don't panic, just give it a minute. Okay? Go File, New, and we're going to go PLTWA. And I'm unsure why that all changed to blue all of a sudden. We're going to go Practice for the project name, your name, the date, and the file name. Okay? And we're going to go Base. We're going to click above it. We're going to click to the right, and we're going to click Caddy Corner. And notice it wants to auto scale it to half. Let's change that to 0.75 and just see what it looks like. I think 0.75 is going to be better for us. So change your scale to 0.75. This guy is a little big. He's 5 inches by 3, which is bigger than most of them. But that has to do with the fact that it's the whole drawing. Okay. And now there's one thing left that you have to do, and that is put center lines on. And if you have already clicked the video off, I hope you watch to the end, because if you don't put center lines on, I'm taking 20 points. So we're going to go to the word annotate at the top, and halfway in the middle of your screen, you'll see this plus sign that says center mark. We're going to click on that, and we're just going to click on the circles in the front view. And notice it makes you perfect center lines right there. Now we can't ignore our secondary center lines in the top view. So we're going to use centerline bisector, which is this command right here. And I'm going to click this line, and I'm going to click this line, and it puts the center, the center line in between them. Now these guys I'm going to zoom up on. You got to get this guy and this guy, because the circles kind of overlap each other in the top view. So it's going to look a little weird. And then over here, it's going to look really weird. We're going to have to do this guy, and this guy is the smaller circle. This guy and this guy is the big circle. And then this guy and this guy is the other smaller circle. So I'm going to zoom up on that real quick so you can see it. That one's kind of tricky because all the circles kind of line up on each other, and you kind of have to look from here across, and you have to train your eye to figure out where they go. Okay. So that is what number, oh, this one's 43. 43 is going to look like when you're done. One last thing, because I forgot to do it. Press escape on your keyboard. Go back to place views. Bring your mouse over here near this beautiful isometric so that you get the red dotted line. Double click on that and put on your shaded. And there you go. Now we're going to save it. File save as. Let it save as 43. Save. And now you guys can turn it in. Isn't it beautiful? That beautiful piece of red Swiss cheese.